deep within the Fang, beneath kilometers of ice and stone, something impossible was happening. Bjorn the Fell-Handed, the oldest living space marine in the Imperium, was dreaming. Not the fitful data dreams of a dreadnought's hibernation, but true dreams, vivid, primal, and utterly real. In these dreams, Bjorn walked not as a war machine entombed in ancient ceramite, but as a wolf. His paws touched ground that was both snow and starlight. His breath misted an air that tasted of ozone and the warp's electric tang. And beside him, always beside him, ran a greater wolf. A beast so immense that entire worlds could be reflected in its eyes. A creature whose howl didn't just echo through the dreamscape, but seemed to shake the very foundations of reality itself. When the ancient dreadnought awakens, the wolf priests gather because Bjorn speaks of these visions. He speaks of hunting through realms of ice and fire, of running alongside his king through landscapes that exist between thought and matter. And then he says something that sends chills through even the most hardened space wolves. He's coming home. The Wolf King returns. But brothers, he has changed. This isn't fantasy. This isn't the degradation of ancient machinery or the corruption of 10,000 years old memories. This is something the Imperium hasn't seen in millennia. A psychic sympathy between Primarch and Geneson. A bond so profound that even the warp cannot fully sever it. Bjorn isn't just dreaming, he's sensing something vast approaching through the Imperium. Something that was once Leman Russ, but has become something far more primal, far more dangerous, and infinitely more necessary. Welcome back to the Lore Lord, where today we're diving into one of the most exciting theories in Warhammer 40,000 lore. The imminent return of Leman Russ, the Wolf King, the Emperor's executioner, and why he might come back as something the Imperium has never imagined. A were-Primarch, a perfect fusion of man and beast, warrior and wolf. To understand where Leman Russ might be returning from, we need to go back to the moment he left. It was approximately 200 years after the Horse Heresy, during the Feast of the Emperor's Ascension. The Great Hall of the Fang was filled with celebration, with warriors who had survived the greatest war in human history toasting their victories and remembering their fallen. Then Leman Russ stood. The hall fell silent, because the Wolf King's face carried an expression his sons had rarely seen. Not anger, not joy, but something like sorrow mixed with terrible purpose. According to the Codex Space Wolves, at the height of the feast, Leman Russ rose and shocked his warriors by announcing that he would be leaving. He stated that he had seen a vision, a prophecy from the Emperor himself, showing him what he must do. But what did that vision show? The official records are frustratingly vague, speaking only of a great purpose and a sacred duty. We have fragments, pieces of the puzzle scattered through 10,000 years of Space Wolves' oral tradition. The Frostfang saga records his final words more completely, claiming he spoke of prey that must be found in the darkest places, of a hunt that would take him beyond the edge of the galaxy, and most tellingly, of becoming what must be to do what must be done. Then he looked at his assembled sons and spoke the words that have echoed through the ages. In the end I will return, for the final battle, for the Wolf Time. The Wolf Time. Every Space Wolf knows this term. It's the prophesized end times when the greatest heroes will return, when the final battle between the Imperium and its enemies will be fought. The prophecies don't speak of Russ returning as he left. They speak of transformation, of the king who comes in wolf's guise, of the father who will be both but more and less than he was. Russ didn't go alone into the dark. He took with him his most trusted wolf guard, his oldest companions who understood the curse of the Canis Helix better than any others. This choice tells us everything about where he was going and what he expected to face. According to Space Wolves lore, Russ spoke of a great hunt, of prey that must be found in the darkest places of the galaxy. He chose his most loyal warriors, veterans who had fought beside him since before the heresy. Leman Russ, who had witnessed the Wolfen curse affect his warriors throughout the heresy, understood the beast within better than any. Though he took his wolf guard on this final hunt, the connection between his transformation and the Wolfen phenomena cannot be ignored. The curse that had plagued his legion was perhaps never a flaw at all, but a feature, a genetic echo of what the Primarch was destined to become. Where did he go? The official records claim ignorance, but the evidence points to one terrible truth. Leman Russ entered the Eye of Terror. that wound in reality where the warp bleeds into real space, where demons dance and the laws of nature hold no sway. He went into hell itself, hunting prey that no mortal could track. The greatest servants of chaos, the ancient evils that threatened his father's Imperium. And he's been there for 10,000 years. Here's what we know about the warp. It transforms everything it touches. It's not just a dimension of energy and horror. It's a place where thought becomes reality, where the fundamental nature of a being can be reshaped by will, emotion, and exposure to pure psychic force. As the Emperor's gift reminds us, the warp changes all who traverse it. Even the blessed and the sacred are not immune to its touch. The question is never whether you will be changed, but whether you will master the change or be mastered by it. Now imagine Leman Russ in that realm, a Primarch, already half-warp entity himself, crafted by the Emperor from genetic science and immaterial power. A warrior whose very gene seed carries the Canis Helix, that unstable genetic modification that can turn his sons into beasts. A hunter whose nature was always split between the civilized veneer of the Emperor's court and the savage reality of Fenris's death world. What happens when such a being spends 10 millennia in the warp? The answer is both terrible and magnificent. Transformation. But not the corruption of chaos, something different entirely. Russ would have been hunting the greatest prey in existence, fighting demons and worse things in realms where human form is a disadvantage, where the beast is pure, honest, and effective. Every battle would push him further towards embracing his lupine nature. Every victory would prove that the wolf inside him wasn't a weakness to be controlled, but a weapon to be unleashed. Leman Russ, the great wolf, captures this perfectly. The wolf was always in him. It was his strength and his weakness, his gift and his curse. On Fenris, he learned to master it, but mastery is not elimination. The beast still waits, patient, hungry, eternal. For 10,000 years, that beast has been growing stronger. Not corrupted, not tainted by chaos, but evolved, refined, perfected through endless combat in the Imperium's depths. Leman Russ hasn't been corrupted. He's been completing a transformation that began the moment the Emperor found him on Fenris. Raised by wolves, more beast than man. The Wolfen are coming back. After 10,000 years lost in the Eye of Terror, the 13th Company, warriors lost during the burning of Prospero who pursued the Thousand Suns into the warp, have been emerging from the warp in greater numbers. They appear at critical battles across the galaxy, savage were-creatures who fight with primal fury but somehow retain enough of their identity to recognize their gene brothers. It's not just the 13th Company. Space wolves across the Imperium are experiencing increased incidents of transformation. The Canis Helix, stable for thousands of years, is becoming unpredictable again. Warriors who showed no signs of the curse are suddenly manifesting lupine features. The transformation rate has increased dramatically since the opening of the Great Rift. Codex Space Wolves notes this phenomenon. The return of the Wolfen coincides with increased warp instability across the galaxy. Some wolf priests theorize that the curse grows stronger, not weaker, as if something in the Imperium calls to the beast within every son of Russ. That something is Leman Russ himself. Think about how gene seed works. It's not just genetic inheritance. It's a psychic link, a thread connecting all sons to their father. What happens to the Primarch echoes through his descendants. When Sanguinius died, every blood angel felt the Black Rage. When Mortarion fell to Nurgle, the Death Guard began their transformation into Plague Marines. The connection between Primarch and Chapter isn't just biological, it's metaphysical. So when Leman Russ transforms in the warp, when he embraces the beast and merges man and wolf into something new, that transformation ripples through every space wolf in existence. They feel it in their bones, in their blood, in the howling that sometimes fills their dreams. The curse intensifies because their father is changing, and they are changing with him, preparing for his return. And Bjorn, ancient, wise, the one who knew Russ personally, feels it most strongly of all. His wolf form manifestations aren't aberrations or signs of degradation. They're previews. They're Bjorn connected to his Primarch by bonds of loyalty and gene seed, showing the rest of the chapter what approaches. When Bjorn walks as a wolf through the warp, he's walking in his father's paw prints, sensing the Wolf King's imminent return. Space Wolf's prophecy has always been treated as superstition by other chapters, the ramblings of barely civilized barbarians who dress in pelts and drink mead. But the Space Wolves have been right about more than their critics want to admit. They predicted the return of the Wolfen, they foresaw the coming of great darkness, and they have always maintained that Russ would return for the Wolf Time, the final battle. The Frostfang saga describes his return in terms that suddenly seem less metaphorical and more literal. He shall return when the wolves hunt the stars, when the sons of Russ wear the pelts of their curse with pride, when the king comes not as man alone, but as the perfect union of warrior and beast. In that day the galaxy shall know the true fury of Fenris. Let's examine this prophecy piece by piece. When the wolves hunt the stars. The Space Wolves operate across the entire galaxy now, their great companies scattered among the stars rather than confined to Fenris. Check. When the sons of Russ wear the pelts of their curse with pride. The Wolfen are being integrated back into the chapter, their transformation recognized not as a failure, but as a different kind of service. Check. When the king comes not as a man alone. This is the part we're waiting for. But all the prerequisites are in place. Even Reboot Guilliman, the most rational and skeptical of the returned Primarchs, has felt something. In Dark Imperium he admits, "I'm not the first to return, nor shall I be the last. My brothers stir in their prisons of time and space. I feel them as I always could. The wolf most of all. He howls in a place beyond hearing, and his howl grows louder." The Lord Commander of the Imperium, a being who deals in facts and logistics, confirms it. Leman Russ is coming back, and that howl Guilliman hears, it's not the cry of a man, it's the song of the beast. So let's address the central question. What will Leman Russ look like when he returns? I believe, and the evidence supports this, that Russ will return as a were-being, a creature that exists in perfect balance between Primarch and Wolfen, between the civilized warrior king and the savage beast of Fenris. He won't be corrupted by chaos, but he will be transformed by 10,000 years of embracing his true nature in the warp's depths. Imagine three forms, three aspects of the same being. First, the man form, Leman Russ as he was, but marked by ages beyond counting. Scars that glow with inner fire, eyes that hold the depths of the warp, a presence that makes even other Primarchs uncomfortable. Still recognizably the Wolf King, but weathered, ancient, carrying about him an aura of such primal power that even standing still he seems to be stalking prey. In this form he could interact with the Imperium, could speak with his brothers, could command his chapter. But everyone who looks at him would know, this is a courtesy, a concession. This is the beast wearing human skin. Second, the beast form. A wolf the size of a battle titan, with fur that shifts between gray, white, and the star-speckled darkness of space itself. Eyes like burning ice, jaws that could snap a land raider in half. A howl that tears at the fabric of reality. In this form he would be unstoppable, a force of nature given will and purpose. Not chaos corrupted, but primal order. The order of fang and claw, of hunter and prey, of nature red in tooth and bloody. And third, the war form, the synthesis, the perfect fusion. Bipedal but bestial, a warrior's frame standing over 3 meters tall, rippling with muscles that no human could possess. Human hands tipped with claws that can rend Terminator armor like parchment. A wolf's head atop massive shoulders, lupine features that can still form words, can still command, can still love his sons even as he tears his enemies apart. In this form he would be the ultimate expression of what the Emperor designed. A weapon without peer, combining a Primarch's strategic genius with the Wolfen's savage fury. This isn't corruption. This is completion. This is Leman Russ finally understanding what he was always meant to be. Not a barbarian pretending to be civilized, but a perfect predator given purpose by his father's vision. The return will not be peaceful because the Imperium isn't ready for what Leman Russ has become. More specifically, his brothers are not ready. Picture the scene. Reboot Guilliman, Lord Commander of the Imperium, receives reports of something emerging from the warp near Fenris. Something massive, something that registers on psychic sensors as both familiar and alien. He goes to investigate, perhaps hoping against hope that another brother has returned, that he and the lion won't be alone in trying to save their father's dying dream. And then he sees it, a creature that wears Leman Russ's face, but twisted, transformed, caught between man and beast. Guilliman, who has spent years trying to rebuild the Imperium along rational lines, who believes in structure and law and the superiority of human civilization over barbarism, confronts his brother who has rejected all of that. The dialogue practically writes itself. "Leman, what have you become?" "What I needed to be, brother. What you lacked the courage to become. The Emperor made us weapons, but you've tried to be a politician. I've remembered what we are. Executioners." Their philosophical divide was always there. During the Great Crusade, Guilliman built civilizations while Russ burned them. Guilliman wrote the Codex Astartes to limit Space Marine power. Russ ignored it entirely. Guilliman believes the Imperium is worth saving because of its culture, its art, its potential for human advancement. Russ would return believing that all of that is ash and lies, that only the strong survive, and that humanity's salvation lies not in aspiring to something better, but embracing what they truly are, apex predators in a galaxy of prey. And then there's the lion. Lionel Johnson has returned from his long sleep within the rock, awakening in the Imperium's darkest hour. The reunion between the wolf and the lion, two brothers whose rivalry once ended in mutual coma, now carries stakes far higher than personal honor. The lion, pragmatic and merciless, has seen the transformed state of the Imperium. He's witnessed the opening of the Great Rift, the demon incursions, the desperate struggle for survival. But when he encounters Russ, transformed into something that straddles the line between Primarch and Beast, L. Johnson will face a terrible question. Is this creature still his brother, or is it an abomination that must be destroyed for the good of the Imperium? Their ancient rivalry takes on new dimensions. The lion and the wolf famously dueled after the Horus Heresy. Their rivalry ignited when Russ disobeyed orders and destroyed Prospero instead of bringing Magnus back to Terra as commanded, then later festering over matters of honor and loyalty. Old wounds run deep, and the lion is not one to forget perceived failures or breaches of duty. To him, Russ's transformation might represent the ultimate failure, a Primarch who lost control, who allowed himself to become the very thing that they were meant to destroy. Consider the lion's perspective. He returns to find the Imperium fragmenting, chaos rampant, and now his most contentious brother emerges from the warp wearing the skin of a beast. Every instinct of the First Legion's master would scream corruption. The Dark Angels have spent 10,000 years hunting the fallen, destroying any hint of taint within their own ranks. How could L. Johnson accept that Leman Russ, who spent 10 millennia in the Eye of Terror, the heart of chaos itself, emerged pure but transformed? The lion would demand answers. He would demand proof that Russ hasn't fallen to chaos, that his transformation isn't corruption wearing a familiar face. And Russ, with pride of a beast king who has hunted the warp's depths for 10,000 years, would never submit to such interrogation. The Wolf King bows to no one save the Emperor himself. He certainly wouldn't explain himself to a brother who questions his loyalty. Their philosophical differences cut deeper than old rivalries. The lion represents order, discipline, secrets kept for the greater good, the belief that some knowledge is too dangerous to share. Russ represents primal honesty, the savage truth that civilization tries to hide, the belief that humanity's strength lies not in aspiring to something better, but in embracing what they truly are. The lion builds in shadows, the wolf hunts in the open. The lion believes in necessary lies, the wolf despises deception. When they meet, the conversation could shatter worlds. "You've become a monster, Leman." "I've become honest, brother, something you never managed. I stopped pretending we're anything but weapons, stopped hiding behind honor and duty. You keep your secrets and your shame locked in the rock's deepest cells. I wear mine as fur and fang. The Emperor made us to lead humanity, not to become beasts. The Emperor made us to kill his enemies. Everything else was decoration. I've just removed the pretense." The Dark Angels themselves would be divided. Some might see Russ's transformation as proof that the Canis Helix is a corruption that should have been purged from the gene seed millennia ago. Others might wonder if their own Primarch's secrets, the Fallen, the truth of Caliban's destruction, represent a greater betrayal than honest transformation. And the Space Wolves would stand ready to defend their father, not with words or diplomacy, but with bolter and blade if necessary. They've spent 10,000 years as the Imperium outcasts, the barbarians that other chapters whisper about. Now their father returns vindicated, transformed into the ultimate expression of what they've always been told was a curse. If the Dark Angels come to Russ, if the Lion declares the Wolf King fallen, the Space Wolves would go to war against the First Legion without hesitation. The Imperium cannot afford such a conflict. Not now, not with enemies pressing from all sides. But when two Primarchs, two brothers who have never fully trusted each other, who once came to blows that neither could win, meet again after 10 millennia with one transformed beyond recognition, the potential for catastrophe is immense. Perhaps most dangerous is that both brothers would be right. The Lion right to question, to demand proof, to protect the Imperium from potential corruption. Russ right to refuse submission, to stand by his transformation, to embody the savage strength humanity needs to survive. Two opposing truths, two incompatible perspectives, two Primarchs who have never learned to compromise. Guilliman might be able to mediate, to find common ground between the ordered civilization he builds and the savage honor Russ embodies. But between the Lion and the Wolf, between secrets and honesty, between discipline and savagery, between the Knight and the Beast, that divide might prove unbridgeable. The Book of Russ prophesizes, when brother meet again in the end times, old wounds shall bleed anew. The Knight shall question and the Wolf shall answer with fangs bared. In that moment the Imperium shall learn whether brotherhood is stronger than fear. Whether that prophecy ends in reconciliation or bloodshed may determine whether humanity faces its enemies, united or divided. The Lion, pragmatic and merciless, might see Russ's transformation as little different from demonic possession. He might demand that Russ submit to examination to prove he hasn't been corrupted, and Russ, with the pride of a beast king who has hunted the warp's depths for 10 millennia, would never submit to such indignity. The Imperium itself would be thrown into crisis. The ecclesiarchy would debate whether a were-Primarch is still divine or has become an abomination. The Inquisition would demand investigation. Other Space Marine chapters might view the Space Wolves with renewed suspicion and fear. Civil war, quiet or open, could tear through the Imperium's defenders at the moment they can least afford division. But the Space Wolves? They would rejoice. To them, their father's transformation would be vindication, proof that the Canis Helix was never a curse but the Emperor's greatest gift, that the Wolfen are not failures but the truest expression of their Primarch's legacy. The Book of Russ prophesizes, when the king returns in wolf's guise, many will call him fallen, but his sons shall know him, and in that knowing they shall be made whole. For the wolf was never the curse, it was always the cure. The timing couldn't be more perfect or more desperate. The Imperium faces its darkest hour since the Horus Heresy. The Great Rift, the Cicatrix Maledictum, has torn the galaxy in half. Chaos forces flood into real space in numbers not seen since the Age of Strife. The Tyranids advance from beyond the galactic rim, an endless hunger that consumes all in its path. The Necrons awaken from their tombs, ancient powers stirring with malevolent purpose. Xenos empires press from every direction. And what does the Imperium have to face these threats? Guilliman, yes, a brilliant administrator, a capable general, a Primarch who excels at building civilizations and organizing resources, and the Lion who appears to be in never-ending transit to meet with Guilliman. But building civilizations won't save humanity now. The Imperium doesn't need another administrator. It needs a monster. It needs something that can fight the forces of darkness on their own terms, without hesitation, without mercy, without the weakness of civilized restraint. It needs the Emperor's executioner. Faith and Fire puts it perfectly. The Emperor provides what is needed when it is needed most. Not what we desire, but what necessity demands. Sometimes salvation comes with fangs bared and claws extended. The Great Rift isn't just a disaster, it's an opportunity. The veil between worlds has grown thin, especially around Fenris. What was trapped in the warp can now more easily emerge. Psychic Awakening, the Saga of the Beast, notes, around Fenris the veil between worlds grows gossamer thin. Wolf priests report visions of a great beast stalking the immaterial plane, drawing ever closer to reality. Some claim to hear howling in the depths of space, a sound that speaks directly to the savage heart of every space wolf. The path is open. The time is right. The galaxy burns, and in that burning, it calls for something primal, something savage, something that won't flinch from doing what must be done to ensure humanity's survival. Leman Russ is answering that call. Let's summarize what we know, what we can prove, and what the lore tells us. Bjorn the Fell-Handed, who knew Leman Russ personally, manifests in wolf form in the warp, hunting alongside a greater wolf that can only be his Primarch. This isn't conjecture, it's documented in recent Space Wolves lore. The ancient dreadnought senses something vast approaching, his genetic and psychic connection to his father allowing him glimpses of what Russ has become. The Wolfen return in increasing numbers. The 13th Company, warriors who were lost in the Eye of Terror during the heresy, emerge from the warp transformed but still loyal. They appear at critical moments as if guided by some higher intelligence, as if their father is directing them from beyond the veil. The Canis Helix curse intensifies across all Space Wolves. Warriors who showed no signs of transformation suddenly manifest lupine features. The rate of change accelerates with each passing year, growing stronger as the Great Rift widens, as if the presence of their transformed Primarch in the warp sends ripples through their shared genetic legacy. Reboot Guilliman, the most rational of Primarchs, confirms he senses the wolf. He hears howling from beyond reality, growing louder, approaching. If Guilliman admits it, it's real. The prophecies align. Every condition for the wolf time has been met except the return of the king himself. And the prophecies don't speak of Russ returning as he left. They speak of transformation, of the king who comes in wolf's guise. The Great Rift provides a pathway. The barrier between warp and real space has never been thinner. What was trapped can emerge. What was hunting in the Imperium's depths can finally come home. And the Imperium's need has never been greater. The strategic situation demands not a builder but a destroyer. Not a diplomat but an executioner. Not a civilized Primarch, but a savage weapon unleashed upon humanity's enemies. Everything points to one conclusion. Leman Russ could be the next Primarch to return, and he will return transformed, evolved, completed. The perfect fusion of man and beast, the were-Primarch, the Wolf King in truth. So we stand at the precipice of something unprecedented in Imperial history. Somewhere in the warp, Leman Russ stalks through realms of madness and nightmare, hunting prey that would break lesser minds to perceive. With each kill, each victory, each moment of savage triumph, he becomes more wolf than man, more beast than Primarch, more weapon than leader. But he remains loyal. That's the crucial point that separates transformation from corruption. Russ hasn't fallen to chaos. He's evolved beyond it. He's taken the raw savagery of the warp and mastered it, shaped it, made it his own without losing his purpose or his soul. He's done what the Emperor perhaps always intended, become the ultimate predator, the perfect killer, the executioner without peer. When he emerges, and he will emerge, the galaxy will tremble. His brothers may recoil in horror or admiration. The Imperium may embrace him as a savior or reject him as abomination. But his sons will know him. The Space Wolves will howl their welcome, recognizing in their transformed father the ultimate expression of what they themselves struggled to become. And then the hunt will begin anew. Not the scattered campaigns against isolated threats, but the great hunt, the final hunt, the wolf time itself. With Leman Russ at the head, terrible, savage, unstoppable, the Space Wolves become what they always were meant to be. The Emperor's punishment for those who threaten humanity, delivered with fang and claw and absolutely no mercy. The Wolfen curse wasn't a flaw in the gene seed, it was preparation. It was the Emperor looking forward to this moment, knowing that one day humanity would need something more than civilized warriors. They would need beasts with purpose, predators with loyalty, monsters who fight for the light. Bjorn dreams because he knows. The wolf in return because they herald their king. The curse intensifies because transformation is coming, not just from Leman Russ, but for every son who carries his legacy. In the grim darkness of the 42nd millennium, there is only war. And into that war, from the depths of warp itself, comes the Wolf King, changed, evolved, perfected. He brings with him the savage fury that civilization forgot, the primal strength that humanity abandoned, the beast that has always lurked beneath the veneer of culture and law. The Imperium wanted a savior. It's getting an executioner. The galaxy expected a Primarch. It's receiving a predator. Humanity prayed for hope. It's being given teeth and claws and the will to use them. Leman Russ returns, not as he was, but as he needed to become. And the howl that announces his arrival will echo across the stars, a promise to humanity's allies and a death sentence to its enemies. The wolf time comes, the king returns, and the hunt never truly ended. It was just waiting for the right prey. In the end I will return, for the final battle, for the wolf time. The end approaches, and when Leman Russ emerges from the warp, bearing the scars of 10,000 years of hunting in hell itself, the galaxy will finally understand what those words truly meant. This is the Lore Lord, and I believe the evidence is overwhelming. Leman Russ may be the next Primarch to return, and when he does, the Wolf King will show us all that the beast was never the curse. It was always the cure. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the darkness of the warp, something primal is stirring, something loyal, something savage, something that remembers its father's purpose and its son's faces. The wolf is coming home.